Did you know that an Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? Kuze has gone to extreme lengths for Alia and his friends. Even though he normally tries to stay out of any trouble, he's done some insane things to protect the people he cares about. Especially after summer break ended, as the academy would have its annual school festival, and Alia, Takashi, Hikaru, Nanoa, and Taniyama all planned on performing a concert at the festival, with the entire thing being managed by Kuze. They would end up putting weeks of work into mastering their performance. However, when the day of the festival came and it was time for them to perform, some people in the crowd started throwing firecrackers and caused trouble, putting the concert on hold. As it turned out, a student had invited troublemakers from other schools into the festival to cause problems, and the reason they did this was pretty simple, as it was to make the current student council look bad as the festival was run by them, and then they would capitalize on what happened to give them an edge over Yuki and Alia in the election. But I think it was a terrible plan to begin with, purely based on how talented the entire student council is, and there's no way the plan could be executed without the perpetrator getting caught, and that's exactly what happened. As Kuze ended up finding out who did it, and then purely motivated by the fact that they ruined Alia's concert, put them in a submission hold and threatened to break every single one of their fingers until they confess their crimes.
Does anyone have secret feelings for Gojo besides Marin and my dress-up darling? Gojo has interacted with several people outside of Marin ever since he started making cosplays, and one of them actually ended up catching feelings for him. This person could be one of Marin's friends from school, as they all became closer with Gojo during the school festival, but that isn't the case. This person is actually active in the cosplay community, and is even friends with Marin, despite finding some of her behaviors annoying and not going to the same school. They also have somewhat of a tsundere personality, as they tend to be very blunt, and they don't have a problem speaking the harsh truth to others. This person hates anything to do with horror and can get scared easily. They tend to only cosplay characters from kids' anime, and mainly only characters that match their build. However, sometimes they cosplay characters that their build doesn't fit. They also have a sibling involved in cosplay, and their sibling is one of the things they care about the most. Their sibling is also part of the reason they developed feelings for Gojo in the first place, as he treated them extremely kind, causing the person to call him wonderful. Gojo is also the first boy this person had ever held hands with, and it's Sajuna. Did you know why Kuze wasn't invited to Alia's birthday party and Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? They were friends long before Alia turned 15, and even though being invited to a birthday party was a show of friendship in Russia, for some reason, Alia still didn't invite him. However, in the light novels, this gets revealed. After Alia hung up the phone with Kuze, where she found out that she missed his birthday, she began overthinking about if they were really friends or not. It was then that she remembered that she also didn't invite him to her birthday party the year before, but she also recalled her embarrassing excuse as to why. To her, her birthday was an entirely different situation. This was because she genuinely wanted to invite him to her party, but since Kuze was her only friend, he'd be the only person there who wasn't a part of her family. On top of this, Kuze was a boy, and this made Alia scared that her family would tease her about it daily, so she decided not to invite him. Did you know that in Mushoku Tensei, Eris's sword is a very special blade? Even though it seemed like a random blade from the Migurd tribe, the sword has a lot more value than it seems. After she left Rudius to get stronger, she had a mock duel with the sword god. Before the duel, they both drew their swords, and that's when the sword god took interest in Eris's sword, and he asked if it was a Julian. Eris replied that she didn't know, and that it was just a sword she got from the Migurd tribe, but the sword god believed it to be a Julian, and he admitted that the blade he used was also a Julian. His sword was one of the 7 sword god blades. It was made from the bones of the King Dragon King, and it glowed with an eerie golden light. It also happened to be one of 48 magic swords created by a legendary craftsman from the Dragon Realm, and it was the reason why the sword god referred to his and Eris's swords as Julians, as the sword maker's name was Julian Harisco. And as it turned out, Eris's sword was also made out of the bones of the King Dragon King, and it had a magic element to it as well, as its special quality was that the sword never lost its edge. Did you know that an Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? The anime cut an entire conversation between Yuki, Alia, and Kuze when they sat together in the cafeteria. In the light novels, right after Alia found out that Yuki and Kuze were childhood best friends and saw how close the two of them were, she started pouting. Shortly after, her curiosity would get the better of her, and she would ask Kuze if he said anything to Yuki about her. Kuze replied by telling her that he hasn't said much about her to Yuki, besides the fact that she always gets mad at him. Hearing this, Alia complained that Kuze was making her sound like she's always angry, when in reality, it's always his fault that she gets mad. Listening to their conversation, Yuki giggled, and she told Kuze not to be embarrassed. Yuki would then reveal to Alia that Kuze actually speaks very highly of her, and that he says that she is a very hard worker, and that he has a lot of respect for her. Alia would say something in Russian after hearing this, and when Kuze looked over her way, he noticed that Alia was somewhat happy.
Who is actually stronger between Meliodas and Escanor in the 7 Deadly Sins? They're undoubtedly the 2 strongest within the group, but for some reason, everyone argues about who's stronger when I don't even think it's close. I'll admit Escanor is powerful and even defeated Meliodas while he was in assault mode, but to think that he's actually stronger at his peak than Meliodas is insane, and there's 3 reasons as to why. First, let's look at why Escanor's victory over Meliodas doesn't really mean anything in terms of their strength. Both of them reached far higher peaks after their battle, and not only that, but Meliodas has a bad habit of not taking fights seriously. I mean, for the first season, he used a broken sword, and in his assault mode, he always saw his enemies as below him and had no reason to take them seriously. Then there's after their battle where they got significant strength upgrades, with Escanor gaining the 1 ultimate form and Meliodas being able to use his true magic. However, Meliodas' power-up is way stronger than what Escanor got, and Escanor's was already insanely overpowered as he was able to go toe-to-toe with the Demon King. But Meliodas was so strong that he wasn't even able to live in the world unless he gave up his power.
Did you know that Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? Kuze accidentally got revenge on Alia after she made him say the wrong answer in front of the class? In the light novels, shortly after Alia gave Kuze the wrong answer and caused him to embarrass himself in front of the class, Kuze promised himself to get back at her before class ended. However, he quickly forgot about it when he realized he only had 10 minutes to claim his daily character summon in his video game. As soon as he took out his phone, Alia gave him a stern look and asked if he wanted his phone taken. Kuze responded to this with an awkward wink and a thumbs up, joking with her, saying that he trusts that she wouldn't take his phone. Reflecting on his wink, Kuze changed the conversation to how difficult it was to wink, and asked Alia if she thought the same. However, Alia told him that she has no difficulty winking. Hearing this, Kuze doubted her, and he told her to show him her wink to prove it. Reluctantly, Alia decided to entertain him, and so she tilted her head, made a cute face, and winked at Kuze. Unknown to the 2 of them, the entire class had been watching their conversation, and everyone was amazed at what Alia did for Kuze, and some guys even took pictures of it. However, right before Alia winked, Kuze turned his attention back to his phone, embarrassing her after the entire class saw her wink for no reason.
Why does Yuki always act like a child around Kuze and Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian? While she acts like an intelligent, noble woman at school, whenever she's alone with Kuze, she not only acts like a nerd, but also kind of like a child. She clearly becomes very nerdy, talking about anime or manga, or even playing into some weird tropes, but if you pay more attention, you'll notice she becomes very clingy, affectionate, and craves affection and attention, all how a very young child would. And while a lot of the nerdy stuff is an act, I think that Yuki really does unintentionally act like a child because deep down, that's what she craves. And she craves this because of what her childhood consisted of. Yuki has always been playful and childlike at her core, but her asthma kept her from having a normal, playful childhood. And when she finally recovered from her asthma, Kuze had left the Suo household, and the responsibilities of heir of the household shifted from him to Yuki. And because of that, Yuki would be burdened with tons of responsibilities and tough love throughout the rest of her childhood, instead of actually getting to have fun and receiving affection like a normal kid would. So when she acts like a child around Kuze, it's because she's craving for what she missed out on as a kid. Why don't vampires in Seraph of the End burn in the sun? In most media that have vampires, they always burn when exposed to the sun, but the vampires in Seraph of the End are an exception to that, but only kind of. The truth is, the vampires in Seraph of the End do burn in the sun. In fact, they even have a severe form of punishment where if a vampire commits a serious enough crime, they are sentenced to a prolonged exposure in the sun, which can sometimes last up to days or weeks. But as we've seen plenty of times, vampires do go out in the sunlight and are completely fine. Of course, they could wear cloaks or hoods to shade themselves from the sun, but that can only take them so far. And besides, we know that modern day vampires don't wear anything to hide from the sun and they still are fine. But there's a reason for this. As you may know, vampires in the Seraph of the End universe have been around for millennia, and I know it may sound crazy, but the first vampire is actually millions of years old. Because of this, their race has had plenty of time to create far more advanced technology than humans ever could, as we've seen with their communications technology and their weapons. And so, with the thousands of years that they've had, they've managed to create armbands that protect them from UV light and the sun.
Did you know that in ReZero, Amelia and Ram did something that made Rem extremely jealous? In a side story, after the Mob Beast attack, Ram was helping Amelia get better at singing. However, Ram noticed that there was something off with Amelia, as she wasn't putting her all into getting better at singing. When Ram asked what the matter was, Amelia told her that she wanted to do Subaru a favor for helping so much around the mansion, and that she wanted help in doing something for him. The moment she heard Subaru's name, Ram became disinterested in the conversation and was even reluctant to help Amelia in her request. However, Ram was also thankful to Subaru for helping with the Mob Beast incident, and also for everything he's done for Rem and the mansion, so she decided she would help. After talking about it further, Amelia brought up the topic of mayonnaise, and how Subaru was extremely happy over it when they made him some in the past. After hearing this, Ram instantly came up with an idea and proposed that they could make the mayonnaise he likes even better. They ended up making him a steamed potato packed with mayonnaise inside, and when served it, Subaru was amazed. Shortly after this, Rem would find out that Ram and Amelia did something for Subaru without her, and she would mention to Ram that it made her feel a little bit lonely that she wasn't included.